Be me Marco, senior copywriter at a mid-sized marketing agency. Let's call it Velocity Ads because that sounds exactly like the kind of name a guy in a suit who says synergy a lot would come up with. The job is fine, pay is decent, work is challenging enough to not rot my brain. We create campaigns for everything from soft drinks to software companies. Our office used to be a great place to work, not because of the beanbag chairs or the ping pong table that nobody used. It was because of the vibe, a kind of high-energy controlled chaos. People were sharp, funny, and everyone pulled their weight. The lifeblood of this entire operation wasn't creative genius or big budgets. It was the coffee. We had this beautiful chrome Italian espresso machine in the kitchen. A real beast. It was the heart of the office, the central hub, the watering hole. Mornings weren't official until the sound of the grinder cut through the silence. That smell of freshly ground beans was the real start of the workday. You could chart the entire company's productivity by the hiss of the steam wand. The designers in the creative department literally couldn't function without it. Their corner of the office was a graveyard until about 9:15 a.m., when they'd shuffle over, looking pale, and return to their desks with giant mugs of black coffee, suddenly able to create award-winning logos. The sales team ran on pure espresso shots. They'd line them up on the counter before big calls. Project managers used it to survive endless client meetings. I used it to actually write coherent sentences that people would pay money for. It was a simple, perfect system. It worked. We were profitable, we won awards, clients were happy. Then she arrived. We got an all-staff email from the CEO a couple months back. Something about reinvesting in our company culture and welcoming a new visionary leader to the team. It announced our new head of people and culture, not HR. That term was apparently outdated. It was people and culture now. Her name was Raina. She showed up the next week. First impression was corporate. She had that relentlessly positive, yet completely unreadable smile. She dressed in that expensive minimalist style that's supposed to look effortless, but costs a fortune. Her first move was to schedule one-on-one listening sessions with everyone. My session was weird. She asked me a lot of vague questions about my workplace journey and whether I felt holistically supported. I told her I felt fine and that the coffee machine was great. She just nodded slowly and wrote something down in a leather-bound notebook. Interesting, was all she said. After the listening sessions, the small changes started. One morning, we came in and all of our comfortable ergonomic office chairs were gone. In their place were massive gray yoga balls. An email from Raina landed in our inboxes a minute later. Subject: Energize your core. An upgrade to our seating philosophy. The email explained that sitting in chairs was stagnant, and that these active seats would improve our posture, core strength, and creative flow. The office spent the entire day trying to type while wobbling. Our lead designer, a guy in his late 40s, almost rolled right into the glass wall of a conference room. Productivity for that day was zero. We were all too busy trying not to fall over. A week later, Raina introduced mandatory mindfulness moments. Every day at 2 p.m., a soft chime would play over the office speakers. This was our signal to stop everything we were doing, close our eyes, and meditate for 15 minutes. Raina would walk around the office to make sure everyone was complying. Picture this. You're on a hard deadline for a multi-million-dollar client. The pressure is on. And suddenly, you have to stop and pretend to be a Zen master while Raina watches you. It was maddening. People started timing their bathroom breaks for 1:55 p.m. We all complained to each other in private, but nobody wanted to be the one to speak up. The CEO seemed to love her. He was an older guy, easily impressed by the latest corporate trends. He probably saw her buzzwords as a sign that our company was on the cutting edge. We figured we just had to ride it out. The yoga balls and forced meditation were annoying, but we could live with it. We had no idea what was coming. One afternoon, we all got a calendar invite for a mandatory all-hands meeting the next morning. Title: A New Dawn for Workplace Wellness. There was a nervous energy in the air. What was she going to take away next? Desks? The next morning, we all filed into the main conference room. Raina stood at the front, next to a large screen, beaming that same plastic smile. The CEO was noticeably absent. He was probably off on a business trip, having given her his full blessing to do whatever this was. She started the meeting by talking about her vision for a more equitable and harmonious workplace. She said she had identified a key source of workplace toxicity and aggressive energy that was holding us back. We were all looking around, confused. Was she going to fire someone? Then she clicked a button, and an image appeared on the screen behind her. It was a stock photo of a cup of coffee. A massive red X was superimposed over it. A confused silence fell over the room. Raina began her speech. She explained that coffee, as a substance, was the engine of toxic productivity culture. She said it encouraged employees to push past their natural limits, leading to burnout. Okay, weird, but maybe there's a sliver of logic in there somewhere. But then she went further. She said coffee was, and I quote, the embodiment of aggressive masculine energy. A few people coughed to stifle a laugh. She shot them a glare. She went on, claiming that the ritual of coffee drinking was a patriarchal construct designed to reward brute force work over intuitive and collaborative creation. My jaw was on the floor. I looked around the room. Everyone had the same expression of complete disbelief. The designers looked like they'd just seen a ghost. She wasn't done. A new slide popped up. The way forward, mindful hydration. She announced that, effective immediately, all coffee and coffee-making equipment would be removed from the office. Any coffee brought in from outside would be respectfully confiscated. In its place, she was introducing a wellness hydration station. This station would feature a curated selection of herbal teas and filtered water infused with cucumber and lemon. She highlighted the benefits of chamomile for calmness and peppermint for focus. She ended her presentation with a flourish. I invite you all to embrace this positive change as we detoxify our workspace and our bodies. Let's build a culture of genuine, sustainable energy, not one propped up by an artificial masculine stimulant. The meeting ended. Nobody clapped. We all just sort of shuffled out of the room in a state of shock. The first stop for everyone was the kitchen, and there it was. Our beautiful, glorious espresso machine was gone. The bags of premium beans were gone. The grinders, the milk frothers, all of it vanished. In its place was a collection of glass pitchers with sad-looking vegetables floating in them, and a sad little carousel of tea bags. The flavors were things like lavender serenity and sleepy time bliss. It was 9:30 a.m. on a Wednesday. Nobody wanted sleepy time bliss. The mood in the office that day was apocalyptic. It was dead silent. No banter, no music, just the quiet tapping of keyboards. People were walking around like zombies, clutching mugs of hot water that smelled faintly of grass. The creative department just stared blankly at their screens. I tried to write copy for a new ad campaign. The words wouldn't come. My brain felt like it was wading through mud. Around 11 a.m., I saw our lead programmer walking out the front door. He just said, "I'm going to the dentist," without making eye contact with anyone. He came back 20 minutes later with a large unmarked cup and a renewed sense of purpose. He was the first rebel. The next day was even worse. The collective headache in the office was a physical presence. We had a big brainstorming session scheduled for a new client, a major one. Ironically, it was for a new brand of energy drink. The client's name was Apex Fuel. Normally, these sessions were loud, exciting, and full of great ideas. We'd fill up whiteboards with slogans, concepts, and campaign strategies. This time, we all just sat around a table in silence, sipping on peppermint tea. The project manager tried to get things started. "Okay, team, Apex Fuel, let's hit the ground running. What have we got?" Absolute silence. After a solid minute, one of the junior designers meekly spoke up. His idea for a slogan was, "Apex Fuel, it's a drink." That was the high point of the meeting. It went downhill from there. We wasted an hour and came up with nothing. Literally nothing of value. The whole company was grinding to a halt. Deadlines started to slip. Small mistakes were being made on big accounts. The energy that defined our agency was just gone. Raina, however, was ecstatic. She'd send out emails praising the newfound calm in the office. She claimed that the ambient stress levels have plummeted and that we were all benefiting from a more mindful and intentional workflow. She was living in a different reality. The breaking point for me, personally, came about a week into this caffeine-free nightmare. I was heading to the kitchen to get another depressing cup of hot water. As I walked past Raina's office, which had a large glass wall, I noticed her door was slightly ajar. She was on the phone, laughing about something, and she was drinking something. It wasn't cucumber water, it wasn't lavender tea. It was a vibrant milky green beverage in a fancy glass from a trendy cafe down the street. I knew that cafe. They were famous for their high-end, extremely expensive matcha lattes. Matcha, for those who don't know, is packed with caffeine, often more than a shot of espresso. I slowed down, pretending to look at my phone, trying to hear what she was saying. I caught a snippet of her conversation. No, it's completely different, she was saying into her phone. Matcha has a supportive, creative, feminine energy. It's not aggressive like coffee. It's about centered focus, not brute force. I froze. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. She had banned the one thing that kept the entire company functional, calling it a toxic male drink. And here she was, in her glass office, secretly sipping on an overpriced, ultra-caffeinated alternative while preaching about detoxification. She wasn't a wellness guru. She was a hypocrite and a tyrant. I walked back to my desk, my blood boiling. I immediately messaged two of my most trusted colleagues in the creative department, a designer named Dave and a strategist named Chloe. I told them what I saw and what I heard. Their reactions were instant. Fury. This wasn't about wellness anymore. This was about control. We knew then and there that something had to be done. But we didn't know what. We couldn't go to the CEO. He was completely under her spell. Complaining directly to Raina would just get us labeled as resistant to change or not team players. We felt trapped. The atmosphere in the office continued to deteriorate. A quiet rebellion started. People began smuggling in coffee like it was contraband. Thermoses hidden in backpacks. Instant coffee packets passed under desks like secret notes. People would make elaborate excuses to leave the office for 20 minutes, returning with the telltale smell of coffee on their breath, which they'd try to cover up with mints. It felt absurd. We were highly paid professionals, and we were being forced to act like high school kids hiding from a teacher. Raina seemed to notice the slight uptick in alertness. She started doing random walkabouts, peering over people's shoulders, sniffing the air suspiciously. She sent out a memo reminding everyone of the beverage policy and hinted at consequences for those who didn't respect the community's wellness journey. The paranoia was insane. Meanwhile, the deadline for the Apex Fuel presentation was creeping closer. This was a huge potential client. Landing them would be a massive win for the agency. Losing them would be a disaster. And the work we were producing was terrible. Our concepts were bland. The copy was uninspired. The designs were generic. We were all running on fumes, and it showed. We held review meetings where we would just stare at the subpar work on the screen, and nobody would have any suggestions for how to fix it. The creative well was completely dry. We all knew why. We were being starved of the fuel that our brains ran on, but we couldn't say it. We had a check-in meeting with Raina about the project's progress. We showed her the weak concepts we had. She didn't seem to notice the lack of quality. Instead, she praised our calm and considered approach and said she was thrilled to see a creative process not fueled by frantic caffeine-induced panic. She genuinely believed her own nonsense. She thought the lack of energy was a sign of a healthier process, not a sign of a dying company. The presentation was scheduled for the end of the week. It was a video call with the Apex Fuel executive team, and, crucially, our own CEO would be on the call. This was it, our one shot. The night before the presentation, a few of us stayed late, trying desperately to polish a turd. We were exhausted, demoralized, and running on nothing but sugar from the vending machine in pure spite. We knew the presentation was going to be a train wreck. Part of me, a dark part, was almost looking forward to it. This was Raina's grand experiment, and we were all about to watch it blow up on the launch pad. The whole company's fate and her job was riding on this one call, and we were walking into it with nothing but a handful of bad ideas and a crippling caffeine withdrawal headache. The morning of the presentation arrived. I woke up with a sense of impending doom, the kind you get before a final exam you haven't studied for. The office was even quieter than usual, which I didn't think was possible. It felt like a morgue. People were at their desks, but nobody was really working, just staring, waiting for the axe to fall. A couple of the junior staff were nervously sipping on the lavender serenity tea, probably hoping it would do something. It didn't. They just looked tired and smelled faintly of potpourri. Our team, the one responsible for the presentation, gathered in the main conference room about 15 minutes before the call. Nobody spoke. We just looked at each other with the hollow eyes of defeated soldiers. Our project lead put the presentation up on the big screen and did one last, pointless click-through. The title slide read, "Apex Fuel, Fueling Your Apex." It was the best we could come up with. The visuals were stock photos of people smiling vaguely while jogging. The copy points were a collection of meaningless corporate buzzwords. Synergize your potential. Actualize your peak. It looked like a project made by an AI that had been fed a diet of LinkedIn posts and sedative pills. Just before the call was scheduled to start, the door opened and the CEO walked in. He looked fresh, tan from his business trip, and optimistic. He had no idea what he was about to witness. He gave us a big, confident smile. "All right, team, let's knock this out of the park. I hear great things about this campaign." I wondered who he'd been hearing those great things from. It must have been Reina. He sat down at the head of the table as the video call connected. On the screen, 3 faces appeared. They were the executive team from Apex Fuel. They all looked sharp, serious, and like they didn't have time for nonsense. Our project lead cleared his throat and began. His voice was flat, devoid of any energy or passion. He sounded like he was reading a grocery list. He clicked through the first few slides, talking about brand identity and market penetration. I watched the faces of the clients on the screen. They were completely blank, stone-faced, not a flicker of interest. I glanced at our CEO. His confident smile was gone. It had been replaced by a tight, strained line. He was starting to realize something was very wrong. We got to the core concepts, the big reveal. Concept 1's slogan was, "Apex Fuel, the taste of achievement." The visual was a stock photo of a person in a business suit standing on a mountain. One of the clients, a woman with sharp eyes, unmuted her microphone. She asked what the taste of achievement was supposed to mean, exactly. Our project lead stammered. He said something about the metaphorical flavor of success. She just nodded slowly and muted herself again. It was not a friendly nod. We moved to concept 2. Slogan, "Apex Fuel, your daily pinnacle." The visual was a stock photo of a different person smiling at a laptop. The CEO was now sinking lower in his chair. His face was pale. He was watching his agency, his reputation, go down in flames in real time. We had one more concept, the grand finale. The slogan for this one was so bad it was almost a work of art. Slogan, "Apex Fuel, it's in the can." The visual was just a high-resolution photo of the energy drink can. That's it. That was our multi-million-dollar idea, a picture of the product. Before our project lead could even start explaining the minimalist genius of this approach, the main client, the president of Apex Fuel, held up a hand. "Stop," he said. His voice was calm, but sharp like broken glass. "Just stop right there." Our presenter froze, mouth half open. The client continued. "We came to Velocity Ads because of your reputation for dynamic, high-energy, cutting-edge creative. That's what you're known for." He paused for a beat. "This," he said, gesturing to the screen with his pen, "is none of those things. This is profoundly disappointing. It's lazy, it's uninspired, and frankly, it's an insult to our brand and a waste of our time." The silence in our conference room was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. "We will not be moving forward with your agency," the client said decisively. "Thank you for your time." And with a final curt nod, all 3 of them disconnected. The screen went back to our shared desktop background. The call was over. We had lost. Nobody moved, nobody breathed. We all just stared at the blank screen. We had just witnessed a public execution, our own. After what felt like an eternity, the CEO slowly pushed his chair back. He didn't yell, he didn't scream. That would have been less scary. He just stood up, his face a mask of cold, controlled fury. He looked around the table, his eyes lingering on each of us for a second. Then, without a single word, he turned and walked out of the conference room. The door clicked shut behind him, and it was like the oxygen left the room. We all knew what was coming next. Heads were going to roll. We sat there for a few more minutes in shock, until the project lead finally whispered, "Okay, meeting adjourned." We all slunk back to our desks, trying to look invisible. The rest of the office knew something had gone horribly wrong. The vibe was thick with fear. I saw the CEO walk out of his office. He didn't go towards the conference rooms. He didn't go to his car. He started walking towards the creative department, my department. He walked with a slow, deliberate pace. He looked like a general surveying a battlefield after a terrible loss. He didn't go to the project lead. He didn't go to the managers. He walked straight to the desk of our most talented and most coffee-addicted senior designer. The designer looked up, terrified. The CEO put his hands on the desk and leaned in, speaking in a low, even voice. He asked him a simple question. "What happened to your work?" The designer swallowed hard. He looked at the floor, then back at the CEO. He gave a one-word answer. "Coffee?" The CEO just stared at him for a long moment, then nodded once. He moved on. He went to another key player, one of our best brand strategists. He asked her the same question. "Why was that presentation so weak?" She looked exhausted. She told him we were all running on empty, that there was no energy, no spark, that the ideas just weren't there anymore. She said it all started when they took the coffee machine away. He was connecting the dots. Finally, he came to my desk. He looked me dead in the eye. "Marco, you've been here a long time. You don't sugarcoat things. Tell me what the hell is going on." So I told him everything. The announcement, the masculine energy speech, the removal of the machine, the yoga balls, the forced meditation, the zombie-like state of the office, the plummeting morale and productivity, the secret coffee runs. And then I told him about Reina. I told him about her in her glass office, drinking her ultra-caffeinated $5 matcha latte while the rest of us were trying to function on chamomile. I told him I heard her call it a drink with feminine energy. As I spoke, I saw a flicker of something in his eyes. It was the dawning, horrifying realization that he had allowed a charlatan to torpedo his own company based on utter nonsense. He had trusted her. He had given her the keys to the kingdom, and she had driven it off a cliff. He didn't interrupt me. He listened to the entire story. When I finished, he stood up straight. His face was grim. He looked like a man who had made a terrible mistake and was now about to correct it, violently. He just said, "Thank you, Marco," and turned. He walked with a new sense of purpose. He strode directly towards Reina's office. He didn't knock. He just opened the door and walked in. He closed the door behind him, but because her office was all glass, the entire company had a front row seat for what was about to happen. We couldn't hear, but we could see. Reina looked up, surprised, that big fake smile on her face. The smile vanished as soon as she saw the look on the CEO's face. He started talking. He wasn't yelling. He was just speaking, but his posture was rigid, angry. He was pointing towards our department, then towards the conference room. Reina's expression shifted from confusion to defensiveness. She started talking back, probably trying to spin the situation, blame the team, use her corporate buzzwords. The CEO held up a hand, cutting her off mid-sentence. He said something short and sharp. Her face went slack with shock. Then he pointed towards the door. It was over. A minute later, an email landed in every single person's inbox. From CEO. Subject: urgent and mandatory. All hands meeting, location, main conference room, time, now. Nobody hesitated. We all got up and filed back into the scene of the crime. This time, the CEO was standing at the front. Reina was there too, standing off to the side. She looked pale and shaken. The CEO waited until everyone was in the room. Then he began. "This morning," he said, his voice ringing with authority, "our company suffered a massive, embarrassing, and entirely preventable failure. We lost the Apex fuel account." He let that sink in. "I have spent the last hour trying to understand the root cause of this failure. I've discovered it was not due to a lack of talent in this room. It was due to a catastrophic failure in leadership and policy." He turned his head slightly and looked directly at Reina. "A few weeks ago, a new policy was implemented under the guise of wellness. This policy, which was based on a bizarre and unsubstantiated theory about masculine energy, banned a tool that many of you rely on to do your jobs effectively." He paused. "This policy directly resulted in a 70% drop in creative output, multiple missed deadlines, and ultimately, the loss of a $3 million piece of business. The room was dead silent. He had done the math. This was not a wellness initiative. It was an ideological experiment, and this company was the lab rat. An experiment that cost us dearly. He looked back at all of us. That experiment is now over. Then he turned back to Raina, his voice dropping to an icy calm. Raina, your employment with Velocity Ads is terminated, effective immediately. Your personal beliefs are not compatible with the financial reality of this business. Security will escort you from the building. As if on cue, 2 security guards who had been waiting outside the door stepped into the room. Raina's face was a mixture of disbelief and humiliation. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. She just grabbed her purse, and the guards walked her out. We all just watched her go. It was a surreal moment of pure, unadulterated karma. After she was gone, the CEO addressed us one last time. I apologize, he said, and he sounded like he meant it. I allowed this to happen. I failed to listen to my team and instead listened to buzzwords. It will not happen again. Now, everyone, go back to your desks. Tomorrow will be a better day. And that was it. The next morning, we all came into the office, not sure what to expect. The first thing that hit us was the smell, that beautiful, rich, life-affirming smell of freshly brewed coffee. We all walked towards the kitchen, and there it was. Where the sad hydration station had been, there now stood a brand new, top-of-the-line, commercial-grade Italian espresso machine. It was even bigger and shinier than our old one. Next to it were giant, industrial-sized bags of premium coffee beans, milk, sugar, everything. And standing beside the new machine, wearing an apron, was the CEO. He was dialing in the grinder, tamping espresso, pulling the first shot himself. He didn't say a word. He just pulled a perfect shot of espresso, poured it into a small cup, and handed it to our lead designer. The designer took it like it was a holy relic. A few people started clapping, then a few more. Within seconds, the entire office was erupting in applause. It wasn't just clapping, it was cheering. It felt like a liberation. The CEO just smiled, a real smile this time, and kept making coffee for everyone. The energy in the office that day was electric. The buzz was back, louder than ever. The ideas started flowing, people were laughing again, and the work we produced in that one day was better than anything we'd done in the past month. We never heard from Raina again. We learned a valuable lesson. It was never really about the coffee. It was about the difference between a leader who trusts their people and a manager who tries to control them with ideology. It was about the victory of common sense over corporate nonsense. And that lesson, as it turned out, smelled a lot like a double espresso.